there.
We organized everything but that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll
Druid
take that.
time. It's Druid time.
Oh, I should have worn my druid.
Welcome, everybody. And on this episode of the Pocket Dimension Live, we're going to talk about ability scores.
Don't fall back.
Clack, 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 clack. Hello, my friends. Hello, all the friends. This is the first of the Pocket Dimension Live that we have, the second one that has everybody here.
Everybody's here.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
I'm late.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Matt. Looks like it's boys versus girls today. That's
right.
On the Pocket Dimension, sorry. Sometimes
Gonna kick your butt.
I'm Matt.
I'm Evan.
I'm Allison.
I'm Fitz.
Nice. Nice.
I'm
we have been-
uncomfortable.
How uncomfortable.
And we're professionals.
And we're professionals. We have been talking recently about myths of starting the game Dungeons and Dragons, the difficulties, the worries, the fears, and first we kind of announced the myths, and then we kind of went into last week just how easy it is if you just want to be a super noob and get in and get out. But this week we're going to go in a little more depth, and I think Allison is going to get us started. Is that correct? No.
Evan's gonna do it.
Evan's going to get us started today.
That's okay. I'm used to being looked over in life.
Yeah, that's right. Me too. I mean,
Youngest child.
I've been a little brother my whole life. Yes. So last week, Matt and I took I won't say a deep dive. We took a dive into the dndbeyond.com character sheet. How to quickly get into, just get started. I think we looked at pre-made characters. We looked at what it might be like to just build one. They have a quick build option. Just looking at some of those features. And right towards the end, we started to kind of dip into where things start to feel really intimidating to noobs. And so today, we're going to demystify some of that stuff with the help of AK and Fitz, who are true experts in character creation, both in D&D Beyond, or if you're a pen and paper person too. We recommend D&D Beyond. We're not getting sponsorship from them, although we would accept it if they offered. But it is really, really helpful, as Matt and I were saying last week, to have all of the resources at hand just a click away. So it's also great for beginners. So without further ado, today, let's dive a little bit deeper. AK, where are we headed?
Yeah. Where are we headed? So yeah, y'all did a great job last week. I was in the car driving to Fitz while y'all were live and listening, and I kept trying to talk to y'all like you could hear me. It was really fun. And so these pre-generated characters, let me just co-sign on everything that y'all already said. We do monthly one-shots with our patrons, and I actually have been using these pre-generated characters for a couple of months now to make it both easy on me and easy on the people who are especially new to D&D. And yes, so good. So we wanted to now start to kind of peel apart the layers and talk about what it is you're seeing. So where Matt and Evan left off last week are what are called ability scores. So there are 6 big old buckets in D&D, and everything that your character might do is based around these big buckets. And we like to, this is not our unique original thought, but we like to think of them in terms of everything that you can do to a tomato, or that a tomato could do to you.
Ooh,
so your first,
Ooh, dangerous.
ooh, right? So
Yuck.
your first, if you don't like tomatoes, I'm really sorry. This segment might be a little painful for you. We're gonna get through it together, friends.
You want to see the screen? You want to see an actual character sheet at this point?
Let's look at a character sheet, and we're gonna kind of go back and forth between like the guts of how you set this up and then what you're going to see in game. Because the whole point of all of this is just to have like the littlest bit of understanding before you play your first session. But no, you're just going to get to ask a ton of questions of your party and your GM as you're playing. So right up here along the top, just under Happy's name, you see these 6 buckets. The first one is strength. Strength is how hard your character can throw a tomato. So if they're really strong, they're going to be able to cause a lot of damage by chunking that tomato at their foes. Dexterity is how well you can dodge a tomato that's being thrown at you, or maybe if somebody left a tomato out on the floor rude, how well you could dodge slipping on it and breaking your back. Broken backs in D&D, no fun. Up next is Constitution, which I know this was the one that had me scratching my head as a newbie. Constitution is how many tomato hits your character can take before they become seriously injured. So if you're a big and beefy baddie, you can have a bunch of tomatoes hurled at you and just kind of shake them off. If you have a low score there,
Shake him
it
off.
might hurt. Exactly. Intelligence is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad. So when you're breaking down these scores, if you have a character with a high intelligence score, they might be the ones who are more bookish, more learned, went to university, studied. Whereas your wise characters are going to be the ones with just a little bit more, maybe common sense and innate knowledge. Have you ever met somebody who's like super smart in school, but like has no common sense? Or vice versa, bad at school, but just kind of knows the world? There's your differences between intelligence and wisdom. And finally, my favorite score that I have a really hard time when I build characters making this a low score, but everybody, you're going to figure out what you do and you don't like. Charisma is the ability to ensure that nobody throws a tomato at you in the first place. And so that's kind of the rundown. So why we bring these up now is that as you understand how these ability scores are kind of placed, they're going to kind of trickle down. That's why they're at the top of your character sheet, because they kind of affect a bunch of the other things that you're going to do in session. So understanding if your character has a really low strength and a really high wisdom, how that might play out in game. So pre-gen character sheets are great because it does all of this math for you. We've had some people who played D&D back in the day play with us, and they had to use like graph paper and calculator. None of that. D&D is doing all that for you. If you don't want to do math, as Matt and I shared a couple weeks ago, you can just click a button. You don't have to do any math at all. It's great. If you like doing math, then you can.
Then do some math. Yeah.
Then do some ding math. Yeah.
I have to just share, number one, I think that's a really great analogy, the tomato analogy. It also sort of reminds me of the AA diatribe that people say. It's like... I don't know if this is weird to say, but it's like, grant me the wisdom to do something and the intelligence to not drink or do drugs. I like to flip the script. Grant me the strength to kill a tomato and the wisdom to not eat one if I'm allergic.
Grant me the strength to make tomato sauce. How about that?
Sure, with my bare hands.
Okay, with your bare hands.
Grant me the constitution to take lots of tomato hits and the charisma to not have them thrown at me in the first place. This is great.
So
this is beautiful.
I love this. Wow. This is so good.
Any questions from the crowd, real quick? Any questions on this? That is my favorite way. When I found the tomato analogy, the tomato, I don't even know if it's an analogy. It really did help. It really did help.
It does
Good
help.
job.
And can I also just say that I'm particularly excited to hear you guys talk about, to kind of break this down, because I feel like I've been setting up my ability scores maybe not wrong, but not great. And so I'm really interested to hear how you guys approach it and how you explain it.
Yes.
I typically don't care too much about it, except that I know that if I'm, rolling up a monk or a rogue or whoever, I want certain scores to be higher. But I'll share with you later how I do it, just so I don't get the cart before the horse. But I am I just want to share. I'm interested to
Yeah.
hear what you're saying, and now I'll stop talking so you can get to it.
Well, and speaking of that, I kind of was like you, Evan, where I fumbled through in the dark to the best of my disabilities until Fitz walked into my life.
Aww.
And was able to kind of help me break down, because I mean, at the end of the day, it can be fun to build a character who's bad at the thing that they do. And not that Fitz and I are min-maxers. I don't want to tiptoe back into that conversation.
We got into trouble last week. We got into, big
Did you?
trouble. We did. We did. We suggested that the two of y'all were like
Matt suggested.
chaotic good min-maxers. Yeah, because they're chaotic evil min-maxers, and so I implied that you give min-maxing a good name, but then Allison was like, "We are not min-maxers."
Well, it's not that I didn't want us. We might be a little bit of min-maxers, although we don't set out to be. Like, I absolutely want to
don't
make
set
the
out
best
to be.
use of my character. But it was the context of the min-maxers are assholes tirade. I think that Allison and Fitz might be min-maxers. That was what I was sassy
right.
about.
Yeah, that logical leap was a little insulting. I take
far.
it back. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll segue us and also
Yes, please do.
Save us,
clarify
Fitz.
Help us.
that like gender, min-maxing is a spectrum. All right.
Yes.
So
Beautiful.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
you have
Let's go.
you have. Yeah. You got folks on one end who are just chaotic and will hit randomize, and it is what it is, and that's how your character is going to be. Then you've got the min-maxers who, which can be fun, you know. I mean, I'm looking at specifically, there was a level 21 shot with Brendan Lee Mulligan, and he made this Heron Gone creature who could do like 4,000 points of damage in a round. That's extreme min-maxing.
Yep.
I like to be, and I think Allison as well, we like to be somewhere in the middle where you're creating a character where the numbers uplift the character that you want to play. So that the math works out to complement the storytelling. Is that a good way of putting it? You don't want to have a barbarian who is super we'll say you want to have a barbarian who is not just strong but intelligent, right? You know, maybe some sort of tactician. So you're going to maybe go against the standard recommendations, which is to dump your intelligence score and instead put a couple extra points in there and use that as an opportunity to play a little bit more of a vocal, intelligent battle tactician barbarian. Or you could play Grog and have an intelligence of 6 and just play dumb because it's super fun. Yes, Alex.
Hey,
Just
Fitz,
Yeah.
you're already touching on something that I know when I was first a newbie, I didn't understand, and it was a term everybody kept talking about. Can you explain dump stat for us real quick? Because if you're going to
Yeah.
tiptoe into D&D, you're going to hear the words dump stat a whole lot, and I just want to clarify it for everybody out of the gate.
Well, in fact, I may ask Matt, would you pull up that
I would
lovely
love to.
lovely
Yes.
sheet again? So when we're looking at, and in fact, could you go to manage and then do the leveler?
Oh yes.
Oh, happy John Ham.
Let's see.
Happy John Ham. Go
John
to abilities
Ham.
for me.
Abilities. Right. That's right.
There we
That's
go.
what we're talking
All right,
about.
so-
That's great.
And just
Yeah.
for clutter, brother, can you okay agree that?
Thank
There
you.
go.
Yes. Yeah, that is one thing
Amazing.
that I've just gotten used to it. Guess what? Banners don't always work, people. Web design 101. Anyway,
They sure don't.
they sure don't.
Okay, so there's a few different ways that you can choose your numbers for your ability scores. We're going to stick with standard array because that is, I think, how the pre-gen characters are built. And when you're starting out, it is the easiest way to do it. You can roll or you can buy your points, but those are a little bit more complicated. So if you stick with standard array, it gives you these numbers. It gives you 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15 that you can put in your various buckets of tomatoes. When
Nice.
when you hear someone say dump stat, that is the stat. So in this case, wisdom is the stat that is dumped here because it is the lowest stat on this character sheet. So this warlock is very charismatic, but doesn't know not to put tomatoes in their fruit salad. So for me, when I'm building a character, I find it the most interesting to pick where I'm going to put the highest and the lowest score, and then fill in the other stuff in the middle. Do I want to play a face character who's going to be able to not get put in the stocks and have tomatoes thrown at me? Then I'm going to choose charisma as getting my 15. You know, if I want to be someone who can throw a tomato across a football field, I'm going to put my 15 in strength. And so you just sort of adjust it as needed there.
We're never going to look at tomatoes the same way again.
Sorry, guys. Never. That's fine. Yeah.
And
so
really quickly, when you do the pre-gen, these are already built in for you, so you don't have to touch these if you don't want. Fitz is now taking you on the next step.
Yes.
Your journey.
Yeah, and a few things will adjust these scores. So we're looking at the pre-gen character right now, which is a tiefling warlock, right? So standard tieflings get some racial bonuses, which is why underneath each of the ability scores, you'll see that the numbers are either the same or slightly higher. So right now, the intelligence is a 14 and the charisma is a 17. So as a tiefling, for whatever reason, that race gets boosts there. When you're first starting out,
are a little smarter and a little more charming, right?
Yeah, I guess so. So when you're first starting out, honestly, don't worry so much about the race boons. My biggest advice to anybody when you're creating your first character is to just play what you want and try to get the numbers to be even. And what I mean by that is if you scroll up a little bit for me, Matt, we see on this sheet we have all even numbers except for charisma. That one's an odd number. That kind of sucks, and you'll see why when we get to modifiers in a few minutes.
Yes, and this is the good stuff, by the way. This is the stuff that you're really. This is what Evan was asking about. So I don't even know.
Even
understand
numbers.
This part.
Tell me why.
Yes, please,
so Matt, why don't you pop back to look at the full sheet?
Okay.
And we'll see what I mean by even numbers.
Okay.
So if we're looking in those little bubbles in the top left up there, right, we see that those numbers that we input with the standard array and our racial bonuses are in the little tiny bubble. So 10, 12, 14, 14, 8, 17. Above that, you have plus 0, plus 1, plus 2, plus 2, minus 1, plus 3. Those are your modifiers. Don't worry about how those are calculated. D&D Beyond is going to do that for you. That's why we're using D&D Beyond in the first place. It's not worth your time, your mental energy, or your emotional heartache. Don't worry about it. But what you do need to know is those numbers.
Right.
I mean, it's not worth your time. It's just not.
Wow.
Let your DM, if you really need to know, let your DM tell you. But as you go from an odd number to the next higher even number, that number is going to go up. So if our charisma were to go to an 18, you're going to get a plus 4 to your rolls. So when I'm helping people build their characters, in general, one of the things that I like to look out for is if you can help it in the character creation process, when you're divvying out what scores you want, try to shoot for even numbers, especially on your highest. If you can't, that's fine. Sometimes, you can get a magic item that'll give you a +1 in something. Or, when you get to your next level up, you can get a +1. So just keep in mind that going from an odd to an even number is going to boost your modifier, which is what you actually use when you're rolling things.
Yeah, okay, great. You segged right into what I was about to ask you, which is why are modifiers important? Like if you're new about there and you're thinking, well, why? What are modifiers for? Why do they matter?
Well, going back to what we were saying about min-maxing being a spectrum, right? If you want your character to be able to do the things that you want them to be able to do. So in this case, if you want to be able to go up and charm the bouncer at the tavern that's really exclusive that you want to go in so you can talk to somebody, having a higher charisma modifier is going to help you accomplish that goal. Right. Exactly. So persuasion, or, maybe this guy, right? You see he has a higher deception score than a persuasion score. So maybe you're a little bit of a slippery warlock and you want to convince the guard, the bouncer, that you are actually on the invitation list. You don't know why it's not there. You're totally invited, whatever. So making your numbers, your ability scores, match your hopes, dreams, aspirations, goals for this John Hamm character that you have will mean that when you're doing the math, when you're rolling the click-clacks, which are either digital, or if you're lucky to have a little horde like AK and I have, then by having your ability modifiers match up with what you are envisioning in your head, you're more likely to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish.
I have something to ask. So or something to add maybe. So the idea is, yes, your choices for charisma help your class. Say warlocks. Warlocks need to be very charismatic. And so that's going to give you this +3. Like you said, try to get to the 18 if possible, because then it would move up to +4. Now, after that, you make choices as a character as to what you would like to be proficient in, right? And so these dots mean that we're going to take this bonus, which again is D&D Beyond. I've never understood how this number is created. I've never figured that out. But somehow it is +2 for this for Happy. But we've somewhere along the line said, I would rather Happy be more deceptive than persuasive. But I bet somewhere along the line we could have made the choice for him to be a little bit more persuasive. But no. He likes to lie. And so he is proficient. So that's 3 + 2 = 5. So he's a little bit more deceptive. That's correct, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
I think I may have just figured this out right now. I never pay attention to proficiency and why they're colored in, but that was a great explanation, Fitz. So now I'm getting it.
Exactly the point that Matt just made. I love that we have Seth is here in the chat today, and Seth is an expert level D&D player. He's a DM.
Yeah.
Still here, wanting to chat, in a segment that's geared more towards the new. Matt, Evan, the fact that you guys have been playing as long as y'all have been, I consider you both expert level players, and we're still all figuring all of this out. So if that doesn't prove that this really can be an inclusive, beginner, newbie friendly, ask the question. I don't know what else to tell you, because we're all still fumbling through in the dark sometimes, and that's okay.
And we haven't needed to know. I haven't cared that much, right? Sorry.
It just goes to show, like we were saying to Cass last week, that you can look at the sheet and see saving throws, senses, all of these different things, and go, geez, what am I even looking at? But you truly, whether or not we are advanced level, you don't have to do much. It's not much. It's not something to put on your resume. I'm an advanced level.
Speak for yourself.
Played more than 3 games, and you're an advanced level probably. But you just don't. You don't even need to know what all this stuff does exactly, especially now with D&D Beyond. So anyway.
Yeah, you don't have to be like me. You don't have to read the entire basic free rules before you start playing. Feel like that's not enough, so then you buy the player handbook and read the entire thing, feeling like there's going to be a test before you played your first game. You don't have to be like me. You can mess around and find out.
I read nothing. I was tossed the player's handbook, and I said, nah. They'll tell me what to do. And they did.
Yeah. I see you, AK.
I love the juxtaposition of Fitz's first session versus my first session. I think that tells you everything you need to know about the two of us as people. But we're both chaotic and on different ends of the chaos spectrum. It's all the spectrum. I love it.
That's true.
So I'm thinking, tell me if this feels good with you guys. I feel like we've kind of exhausted pre-gen characters and how that, breaking down that, I would like to build a character real quick. Just showing you how easy it can truly be. And we're just going to do it solely on the vibes. We're just going to do it with the vibes.
Pure vibes.
Vibes.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
So let's build a new character.
Let's do it. Jack says that she appreciates us doing this good work because it is tough. It is confusing, and it's like, it is kind of like writing code as well. There's the no code movement where you don't have to know anything of the guts, but if you know, the more that you know a little bit of the guts, a little bit, you feel a little bit more involved, as I do right now. Now that I know.
And Jax or Cass, if you want us to go through the character sheet and just break down what each of those sections are, what they mean, let us know. I mean, you can find that information. You can also just go there and kind of read it yourself. But if it's helpful to, as we build this character, to explain what all these little things are, shout it out.
All right.
Also, by vibe creation, I assume what you mean is we're going to ask ChatGPT what kind of character.
No, we're going to ask our live audience. I'm not using a robot when we have people.
We're gonna see what the universe is telling us today. So we're gonna just do a standard step-by-step character, and we're gonna
character creation.
I want to see this while we're doing this.
Do the show help text. And so we're going to do a little bit. I'm going to take this the way that I normally build characters, and I'm just going to pull it a couple steps back, and as if I was doing my first character. Okay. So generally speaking, what I like to do is I like to skip the first couple of pages and go straight to class. Because to me, that is the biggest question.
Okay.
What class am I going to play? And so if you've got the starter thing, it'll give you a little bit of a breakdown here that you can read through to figure out, what the heck is a class.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead and get to the picking menu for me.
But where is the picking menu?
Hit the right arrow.
No, the arrows on the, yep.
I see. They double it's the text and then I get it. Okay.
That's the help text. And for me, you can't ever get it to go away once you turn it on. There's another UX thing that we need to be able to help you out with dndbeyond.com.
Whoops. Sorry, I shouldn't have clicked it then. Anyway, choose a class.
You're good. So we did a warlock before already. So let's choose something different. What's vibing with us today? What are we feeling like?
Roll a damn die. I mean, come
on.
How
many do we have? 13? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'm going to roll a d20, and if it is above a 13, then we'll...
roll a d12, because we're going to do minus the warlock.
Okay, cool. Oh, you're right. All right, so that is a 9.
9. So what's number 9?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And
6,
speaking
7,
of
8,
vibe checks,
9.
though.
Ooh, no one's favorite. But I love it, right?
Once you kind of do a little bit of reading on the different classes, one's going to call out to you. I can almost guarantee. Go with that one. Don't overthink this. Yeah. Almost everybody that's played has and it's almost like people get, I think maybe I want to. No, just go with that. Just bulldoze in. It's great.
Well,
so yes,
and
Ranger.
This is very fun that this is the first pick, because when I was building my first character, I was between Ranger and Druid based on just reading. If you see underneath Ranger, it has a warrior who combats threats on the edges of civilization. Each of these classes will have a little flavor text for what it might be. So when I was first building my character, my very first one, for me it was between Ranger and Druid. And my cousin who was helping me build it said, don't do a Ranger, they're dumb. So I did a Druid instead. Rangers are cool now. It's fine.
They're cool now.
So don't
worry
play
about
what you
it.
want.
They were cool back then.
Yeah, it's cool. Okay.
No more Ranger.
I've never
Stop
played a
Ranger
Ranger.
shade.
Exactly. There's no more Ranger shade. They actually have gotten cooler. So if you get Ranger, if that calls to you, play a Ranger. We're going to do that. So go ahead and add that class.
We have challenged Evan to play a Druid, and he did, and to much aplomb as well. Maybe I need to play a Ranger. Maybe I need to...
Do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Now, at this point, I like to maybe read a little bit more about the Ranger, because to me, that picker chart that pops up when you're choosing the different ones is a little bit too much for me. So actually, I know this might be confusing because we're going to navigate away from this page, but I like to scroll up to the top and hit game rules.
Range.
Or go here
Sorry,
and just go to Ranger.
I have a magic search. Sorry, I have a magic search. That
fine.
I love. So yeah.
That's cool. And if you go to creating a Ranger,
And there's Ranger as well. Yeah. And we go to creating a Ranger.
where it says quick build. So if this is your first time building a Ranger and you just want quick tips, they make it easy for you. They say first make your dexterity your highest ability score, followed by your wisdom. Some Rangers who focus on 2-weapon fighting make strength higher than dex. Second, choose the Outlander background. So D&D Beyond
I've never done
/
this.
Wizards. Oh yeah. Every class has this quick build option here. For spellcasters, it gives you some spells to pick at first level. And yeah, so it has a little table so you can sort of see what's coming ahead for you. But I like to go here and just see what the quick build recommendations are. 2-weapon fighting? Okay. Is that Jax that said
That's Jax,
side
yeah.
note on
Side note.
2-weapon fighting? That is confusing. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
The mechanics of it, let your DM walk you through it. It has to do with what you do, your action versus bonus action. Maybe we can go through the different fighting archetypes at some point. But I would just say things like that, don't get bogged down in it. In this stage, don't get bogged down in that kind of thing. Choose your weapons. If you happen to choose daggers, then you know what? 2-weapon fighting might be great for you. If you choose a short sword and a dagger, 2-weapon fighting might be great for you. If you want to wield a 2-handed weapon, nah, we're gonna pick something else. So that at that point, in this building, we're just going with the vibes. So we're not gonna worry about the breakdown of mechanics. We're gonna choose what feels good for us and then make the rules work for our character choices. So, anyways,
But basically,
we're gonna go
two weapon is one weapon in one hand and one in the other. Yep.
instead
but
of dual.
the and maybe Jax, this gets to what you're talking about. There are certain classes who can attack twice in a round with 2 weapons in each hand, and they get different bonuses or whatever for that. Whereas I think a lot of classes can have 2-weapon fighting and they use their bonus action for the second attack. Is that right?
All of them, as long as it's 2, they have to be simple weapons, light. So like Fitz was saying, the dagger and the short sword, you can't do it if you have a glaive.
Yeah,
Right.
but that's
Anybody
like
can do it.
next level.
But that's next
like
level.
intermediate
Yeah.
character building. So at some point we'll go through some
Jax,
of the more.
we got you. Yeah,
got
you want to
you.
do a 2-weapon fighter on a one-shot soon?
We got you. Sorry to not delve too deep into that, but that's kind of intermediate level.
You were trying to do
Yeah.
the right thing. Okay, so where do you want to go back?
Yeah. So we're gonna go back now. I just wanted to call out that little
Yeah.
quick build there because that to me is a very lovely little cheat sheet. So now once I
Fitz,
pick
I've
my
always
class,
wondered how you know. Like, because you so quickly will say like, oh, this is a dex base or this is charisma base. And I'm like, how does Fitz know this? So now I know how you know. Good job.
The more you
quick
know.
build and the googles. But at this point, let's go back. We'll choose our race now because that feels like the second biggest decision.
Okay, so
I know we're not exact.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
go.
just leave those. Leave those. I wanted to know what class we're playing.
Yeah. So it's got all
class
this.
and then race.
Great. And we're gonna go next. And we're going to this is
So
a
we got
lot,
a lot of
guys.
We got a lot of options. If you have a free account, this is drastically reduced. Matt has
Right.
all the books, so he's got access to all the things. I believe
Jeez, I really do.
you really do.
do.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Wow.
What are we feeling? What kind of ranger are we feeling like playing today?
Let the dice tell the story.
There are
Oh.
so many, but sure.
All right, rolling a d20 this time. We'll cut it off at 20.
Yeah. We'll cut it off
fine.
at 20.
All right, lucky number 7.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, a bugbear.
A bugbear.
How
Hashtag
interesting.
meant to be.
Yep.
If only I was wearing my
Really?
bugbear shirt today.
I know.
You know what? Actually, let me roll this back. Since this is, if you do have a free account, you will not have access to a bugbear as a playable character. So let's maybe pick one.
Pick one that's not in the advanced.
So
sure, that's fair.
Just in case there's someone following along at home.
I get it.
Yeah.
Let's go up or down based. An air genasi, a genasi maybe a gnome might be available. Are those, or do you have to have?
I could also
Exandria?
turn all of these off. Shall I turn them off? I think I
Yeah,
can still do.
You want to
just
use
as-
logic?
I want to use. Okay, let's do no.
While Matt is doing that,
No.
I'll just say, one strategy that you can pick your race is, some people will say, okay, I want to be a ranger. Then I want to be a race that is going to be a really good ranger. And so, like, a very common choice would be an elf. So we could
Look at
just
Seth's
roll
comment.
with that.
Number 7 in the player's handbook is half orc.
There you go.
Says Seth.
Why not?
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Seth. All right, half orc, a classic character.
Great.
Amazing.
Evan's played a half
Half.
orc.
They're great.
And I could see them being rangers,
Yeah.
ranging around.
So go ahead and let's choose half
Okay,
orc
let's
then. That
choose
feels
that.
good.
Okay. Ooh,
Great. And look, it already is you've got some things here that come with half orc. We're not going to worry too much about that. Let's go now to our ability scores, because that feels like the next big decision.
And here's some explanations as to the different types. But we're going to go right here.
So now we can see that from our half orc lineage, we get a +2 to strength and a +1 to constitution. So if we're remembering what we were saying about even and odd numbers, we're just going to keep that in mind and we're going to hope for the best. We're not going to worry too much about it, but, hope for the best. So we're going to choose the standard array generation method. Now, what did it say? Dex first? Wisdom second?
Unless you want to be something and then choose strength first. But classic ranger, let's go dex.
Yeah, let's go Dex.
Okay.
Classic
that.
ranger.
Why would you want a high dexterity for a ranger, Fitz?
Probably for bows would be my guess. And also to be able to climb trees and
Dodge
navigate the
things.
forest. Yeah, dodge and get around. Now
That makes sense, right? Shooting bows makes sense because it's a hand
It's a
thing.
fine motor skill.
Fine motor skill.
Yeah.
Skill.
Let's choose our dump stat now. That feels good. Feels right. So I'm thinking this ranger, if we're going to go with the classic archetype, we could always play against type if we want, but we're going to go, let's go a little classic here. I feel like a ranger who lives out in the woods, probably charisma is going to be that dump stat.
charisma.
So we're going to give that an 8.
Unless you're Robin Hood.
Unless you're,
That's
that
true.
is true.
Yep.
That is
Dun,
true.
dun, 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 dun,
See,
dun,
there you
dun,
go.
dun,
Right
dun,
there. You
dun.
could make something interesting with
Right.
a slight twist depending on what kind of archetype you want.
But we're tropey troperton today. I get it. Yeah.
We're tropey
We're being
troopers.
Tropey Troperton.
Yeah.
So now, what did we say? Wisdom should be second highest.
Yep.
So let's
We
make
go
that
14.
a 14. So now what do we have
And
left?
I-
We have strength, constitution, and intelligence.
If I
Now-
this is just the way I play it, but if I play high wisdom, I usually go lower on intelligence or vice versa, just because I like that kind of push pull of being more common sense based versus book based. But that's just Allison.
So we could do a 10 intelligence.
That's a vibe. Yeah.
And then you'll see the last two numbers that we have left are 12 and 13. Well, based on our racial bonuses, why don't we give strength a 12, because we get a +2, and why don't we give constitution a 13, since we have a +1? That way, all of our scores are even. And that way we don't have any awkward points that
14.
aren't getting modifier boons.
Wait,
at that.
is
All right, so
dexterity-
now-
is this even though?
De-
Let's see. Dex.
De-
is
oh,
not
Dex
bad.
is odd. So that kind of sucks. But you know what? It is what
Can't
it
be
is.
perfect every time. Can't.
But with standard
Can't be
array,
perfect every
one
time.
of them has to be, right? Because you can't go higher than 15.
Right.
So it's going to, you're required to have at least one odd one. Is that right?
Yeah, but I mean, depending on your racial bonuses, like for some reason, maybe dexterity. You never know. But yeah,
So
most
if
of
this
the time
were
you
an
might end
elf,
up with an odd.
You would have a dex
Yeah.
modifier. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Jax asked a great question. Jax, it's the bottom number. See how in the drop down strength says 12 and below it says total 14? So that's what Fitz is talking about, making those bottom numbers even, because that's factored in with the what you choose plus any things like racial bonuses.
Yeah. That I wasn't sure it is either, but yes, that's the goal, because when these go up, then you're going to probably get a modifier bump.
Can I make a
The
quick
number on
comment?
top is just the standard
Yeah.
array number that you've chosen for that score. The total is with your bonuses and everything.
Yes, Evan?
Comments.
Oh, I just want to make a quick comment on the ranger as a class, for if anyone out there is going like, okay, well, why pick a ranger? You don't, and as how it relates to ability scores, you don't actually have to be have a ranged weapon to be a ranger. You can have a sword. You would have maybe a more like a rapier, a lighter sword that is still more dexterous than it is sheer strength and brutality based, like a fighter would have or a barbarian might have. So just so you're wondering, why pick a ranger? Well, it might be good in your party to have someone who stays back, is not up close and personal in a fight, but can rain fire, hellfire from above or from the side. And that will influence, depending on, it's like, oh yeah, well, I do want to be like Robin Hood, so I am going to stay further back, and that is how you're going to also choose your ability scores. For instance, if you're not going to be up in the fray as much, your constitution may not have to be quite as high as someone who's going to be further back and away. That might be more confusing than helpful, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, it's also a good thing, things to start thinking about, right? Is what role do you want to play in your party? And, sometimes you'll know who your friends are going to show up with. Sometimes it's going to be you're building these in a vacuum and it'll be a surprise. But it's always good to have an idea of what role you'd like to fulfill. What are your goals with this character? And now that we have a class, a race, and our general ability scores, at this point, this is when I like to start thinking about who the heck is this person? And a lot of times when I'm building the ability scores, that's usually when it starts formulating in my mind. Now, we've kind of just gone on vibes and the roll of the dice for this guy. But, usually when I'm building a character, I like to think, oh, this is my goal for this person. This is who I have a generic outline for them to be. If I'm making, we're going to say with this half-orc ranger, maybe I came in thinking, oh, I want to play this outcast. Maybe this half-orc grew up with a bunch of elves in a forest and is feeling like they need to find their place in the world, right? Maybe they are only familiar with elves. They've never met another half-orc. Like, you can just start, spiraling into who the heck is this person? And then, and maybe next time or a time after, we'll get into choosing your skills. But that's a way to again, narrow in the focus, because we have these ability scores that kind of are the generic outline for what your character is or is not good at. And then once you start picking your skills like deception or animal handling or stealth, that's when you can really start to narrow in on making the numbers fit the personality and maybe one secret that you may have in mind for your character. When building a character, I always like to think of what is their internal thing that we're going to try to externalize in this campaign. If they have, like, for example, in one of our games, I'm playing a character with dissociative identity disorder. Like, I didn't lead with that, but I knew about that going in. So how do I make the numbers and the race and the class fit that idea? And then over time, we're going to slowly discover what that's like, but I'm going to be very particular about what skills I choose. So I think they're good at like stealth, they're good at deception, they're good at masking. So those are skills that I'm going to pick that just make the character sheet a cheat sheet or a guide for this character that I have in my head already. So I know the numbers and the character sheet can get super overwhelming, especially when you first punch in some numbers and then the thing opens up and you're being presented with a whole ton of words, tabs with spells and features. Like it can be a lot. You know, I know probably when we were all first presented with that character sheet, just going, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to get this right. You don't have to get it right, especially your first character. There's so many things about my first character. I look back at that sheet and I'm like, I really messed this up, but that's okay because you learn. And the important part is just playing what interests you and letting the numbers just boost that for you.
Yeah. That was great.
Here.
Yeah. I will confess, I'm still am intimidated when I go and look at the spells list. And I will also admit that is a part there's the marketing side of D&D Beyond. We kind of poked fun at the homepage needing a little glow up, but I'd say for the most part the UX and UI of the sheet, the character sheet itself, is really, really amazing.
Yeah.
I have two bones to pick with it. One is the spells interface. It just managing it on either. There's kind of two areas where you can manage it. Both are confusing for me. And that just adds to the intimidation. There's like now there's a tech. There's just the knowledge of what am I looking at? How do I decide?
They don't have spells.
You don't have you don't have spells at this level.
Yeah. Here, can you, Matt, go to campaigns, because I want to maybe foreshadow something that we can talk about with spells. Go pull up Ash if you can.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Are we going to see something we're not supposed to see for our Barovia campaign?
No, probably. Who knows? We'll see. Okay, we're going to pull up Ash. There we go.
Because they're also high-level characters, so you can really see the insanity that is the spells list at this point. So, let's go ahead and go into their spells tab. If you go to Manage Spells, if you click Known Spells, I mean, Lord Beelzebub, look at this nightmare. It's a lot.
Yeah. And this,
right?
this UX for me is not, I feel like it could be optimized. But also just the sheer volume of it is intimidating. So anyway, I'm still get kind of overwhelmed by this stuff. So anyone coming into it absolutely should.
Well, I will say, to assuage any sort of I could feel the anxiety, which is why I specifically was like, pull up Ash. They're level 11. Yeah. They're going to have an insane amount of spells. Going. The anxiety, I could feel it spike. Let me now give you a peek into, because I think this is like next level what we were talking about of making the numbers work for the character you want to play. I take that same rule when I'm picking spells. There are spells in the cleric list that Ash has available to them that I will never pick. At some point, I think they get harm. I will never pick harm. That is outside of their wheel. As playing a Twilight cleric.
Because why?
Because it is not in their moral compass. It's not in their goals or what they're good at or what I want to explore with this character. Ash,
not that
as
they
Twilight,
can't have it, but yeah.
Right. Not that they can't, but I am choosing not to give it to them.
Never.
So, honestly, you know, I've played, and Allison as well, we've played high-level druids. This is the highest level cleric I've ever had. These are casters that get to choose their spells every day. The number of spells that I actually swap out on a day-to-day basis are very little. Maybe 2.
Same.
Maybe 2. And it's because you start to know what spells really fit in with the personality of your character. So in the same way that you're choosing ability scores to match what you want to explore with your character, choosing spells or even weapon types. You know, when I'm playing a martial character, when I'm playing Herb, I've picked out very specific weapons for her to play with. So it can be overwhelming, but once you get to know, having an idea of fundamentally who your character is going to help make these decisions easier. Choosing the buff spells is a no-brainer. Choosing anything that has like a space or a night theme, no-brainer. I'm not going to choose daylight for a dusk elf.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. So it helps you kind of filter out what you don't need. Right? So yeah, I know we skipped a whole bunch of things, but it all comes down to no matter what level, no matter what class, if you have an idea of what you want to play as your character, you can make the numbers in the inventory and the spells work for you.
Yes.
Pick a flavor. Like for my very first character, she was a wild magic sorcerer. I picked all fire spells. She was a pyromaniac, and I leaned into that. So every time I leveled up, if I saw that there was a new spell that burned you in some way, I picked it. And then I didn't have to, I could clear the noise of it. And I do that every time. Any kind of magic caster, are they really into telepathy and mind control? Or are they really into causing damage? Fitz does a phenomenal job. She's a much better player than I am in terms of like choosing buffs and protecting the party. I tend to be a more selfish caster who just kind of runs into the fray and tries to smash the baddies. But having exactly that kind of like background of what kind of character am I? What's my flavor? It's going to make that spell list and to exactly like, I was a 17th, I think, is where we ended with Sora Druid. And we would know what we were doing kind of day to day. And so I might pick something, if I knew I was going to need a greater restoration or a specific, way to bring somebody back. Otherwise, sometimes I didn't change spells out at all session to session. So
that is really cool advice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and to wrap it all up, if I may, sorry, Matt, I know you just clicked out of Ash's sheet, but could you bring her up? Bring them up one more time? Sorry. Because I want to bring this back to ability scores. We were talking about dump stats and making those scores work for you. Well, we saw what we picked for a level 1. Now let's look at a level 11, right? Look at that dump stat. Don't be afraid to have low scores. I have kept that -1 this whole time, and I have no intention of ever changing it because of the number of times that there have been fastball specials that have gone wrong. Trying to carry party members that out of the fray who are dead or dying and it going wrong. Having a low score can be as exciting as having a high score. Yes. So please feel free, keep those dump stats. That's where the meat is, right? The potatoes and the gravy are the high stats, but it's really where those low stats are.
Your role playing of a low charisma, like you always say that they're low charisma, but you role play it so beautifully, and it's so much fun to both watch you embody it and then watch you roll for it.
I was just about to say that because here's the thing, Ash needs as a caster needs to have this high wisdom, needs to have these other things, but Fitz the player takes into consideration that this character is charisma. It doesn't mean that you are quiet. It doesn't mean that you're mean or sullen. It doesn't have to mean that. It could mean that, but in Ash's case, Ash is just purely obnoxious. Like it is like they are constantly the first person to speak and just kind of goes on these diatribes and doesn't stop. And she, as AK just said, just really, really playing that 10 so well. And so yes, as the game master, I'm saying, okay, Ash, you're trying to convince this guard to let you through, and it never ever seems to work.
Never works. Well, and here's the thing, right? So we've talked about dump stats. We've talked about having a really high. So, strength is an 8, wisdom is a 20. And I try to really play into that, particularly with the wisdom. Yeah. But I think your mediocre score is also, every one of these is important, right? Coming in, building this character in particular, if we're going to use Ash's scores, I knew a couple of things were true. That they were they've been around for a long time. They've also been part of an order that was hidden away. So wisdom and their cleric. So wisdom got to be up there, right? Well, I thought, wouldn't it be fun to come in and play as mediocre a charismatic character as possible, but they think that they're a 20 in charisma. They absolutely think that they make friends everywhere they go. They can talk their way into any situation, but in reality, maybe they grate on people a little bit. And to give everyone kind of an idea of what I mean by mediocre being a 0, if you look at these scores, a 10 is, if you have 10 across the board, that means you're just vanilla, ordinary at everything. It's when you get into the negatives that you're bad at something, and the positives are you're good. So how do you play someone who is just average intelligence and average charisma, and how do you make that spicy? Feel free to lean into any of these. When I make a character, I like to pick one or two that I really lean on. For Ash, it was wisdom and charisma. It doesn't always have to be your highest score, which is the one that you play into.
Yeah.
That's some deep tracking right there. Yeah, that's fun.
Can I point out just something that took me entirely too long to figure out about my character sheet? So you see this big middle column. Those are your skills. So anything that you're going to want to do in game, you can probably tether it to a skill. The ability scores that Fitz walked you through, you see that the second column says mod and has dex, whiz. That literally feeds those scores. So once I connected the two, that my charisma is impacting my performance and my persuasion, and my dex is influencing my acrobatics and my stealth. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that. It's literally written here on the screen, but it helps you kind of keep these things in mind to absolutely everything. And even to what you were saying earlier about your other character, Fitz, Harlow, that, you wanted to be more deceptive than persuasive and things like that. And we'll get into that later. But tying the two together, super helpful to know.
I have a question for everybody.
Yes.
How do you, are there when you're creating a character, are there certain types of characters that you tend to avoid building because you're not sure how to play it? For example, I don't tend to create highly intelligent characters because I'm not good at puzzle solving. I feel like I can't actually rise to the standard. Like, the character will be smarter than I am in real life. And so I get intimidated by trying to step into the shoes of someone that I can't really do. And all of a sudden I'm having a existential crisis.
Right.
So have you guys had that experience? Do you tend to stay within a certain zone? How do you handle that?
It's a good question.
I totally, and I'm with you on intelligence, to the point that I wanted to play a creature that was a bookworm, and I made her a sorcerer, which is more charisma based instead of intelligence based. Intelligence and athletics is strength are always my dump stats, because I don't know how to play either of them. I'm right there with you, Biff.
Yeah. We should get our friend Tay on here one. He has some great thoughts about how to play intelligent characters.
Okay.
I remember in our Discord, Discord, which you can find right here, please join, we had a conversation about intelligence. And my thought was it was a very weak attribute, a very, very weak stat, and very difficult to play. And he had very strong feelings for the opposite. But please come into our Discord and prove us wrong or join the discussion.
Or prove us right.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, yes, there are stats that I lean towards and some that I will avoid. I am less likely to play an intelligent or a charismatic character, but that doesn't mean I won't. It really depends on what is holding my interest in the moment. If Mariana Cross is going to be a bard, I got to be charismatic. So you gotta. But I want to call out though that one of the lovely things about D&D is that you don't have to be your character. You can make your character a reflection of yourself if you want to be, but you can choose to make a, plus a gajillion intelligence and, have D's made D's your whole career in school and you don't like to read and D's get degrees. So if you don't have to play or be that character. There are in our Thursday night game that AK and I were in, one of the campaigns that we played, we had two folks who were playing highly intelligent characters, stat-wise, and just in the way that they role-play them. But occasionally, we'd get to a puzzle or we would get to some sort of lore drop or a library or something. And rather than playing like you are intelligent like that character, one of them would say, well, my character would know this or would know what to ask for in this situation. Right. So you can kind of hand wave, or you can pull out to the fourth wall and say, my character would know this. My character would do this. You don't always have to do it in the first person. Or say, or ask if you can roll for it. Say, hey, I have a feeling my character might know something about XYZ. Can I roll a check for it? And let your DM decide. You don't have to purposely put yourself into a box that you feel like you can already succeed in. If you want to try to challenge yourself, you don't have to be intimidated by, Caleb Widogast. That's a good example, Seth, of Liam was really great playing a wizard, of knowing that, less so of knowing the lore itself, but knowing what your character would and wouldn't know, and then when that opportunity arises, asking for that knowledge.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Wow.
That's not a hall pass out of role playing, though.
No. Not a hall pass. Not a hall pass. Just a
sometimes try.
Variation on a theme.
But
yeah. Well, this has been a really great hour for me personally too, because I have learned stuff in this. So thank you, min maxers.
It's just back around.
Sorry, bring it back around.
Feels bad.
we're
I'm sorry. I take it back. I'm sorry.
We're min maxers, not max min maxers.
There we go. There we go. Yeah.
Yes.
We're min max. No,
min
you're
max.
thoughtful. Because here's why you're not min maxers again. And now that we've gone through and shown everybody, Allison and Fitz they use these scores to both give advantage to combat and solutions and encounters, but also number one, to tell the story of this character. And so that's why you're not the stereotypical min max. I love it. What?
Well, I think we need to roll up some characters together with having Fitz beautifully walked us through this and pit them against each other on one of these soon, just to see to demonstrate what happens when you roll up low charisma, low intelligence, high whatever. Let's go.
Yeah.
Maybe next week or something we can go through what the skills are, and then for October we can every week we can make a character, and then we can do a battle royale at the end. How's that sound?
Come on.
Battle royale.
You are speaking my love language now. Let's go.
Oh, right. I have to not do it. No, actually, battle royale with AK could get.
Oh, yeah.
The one fight we've had at Friends, as friends. Not
and
really.
it was one-sided. I was not. Anyways.
I want a rematch. Let's take it back to the mat. Let's go.
Back to the mat. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks Jax and Seth and Cass and the Pocket Dimension. Thanks everybody for coming in, and a reminder, of course, that we do have a Patreon, which is helping us make these videos and spending time together and spending time with y'all. So that is an option for support for the Pocket Dimension. And then, of course, this Discord server is free for everyone, and we've it feels like there's a new guest every week, which is really exciting and really fun, at least. So come on, join us. And then some of these beautiful shirts. Am I wearing one? No, I'm not wearing one today.
not, but
Allison
I
is. This is another way to help us. Just keep the lights on or the candles on. If so. Thanks everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. So we'll see you next week, same time, same exciting thing with more TTRPG magic.